and welcome to the latest episode of Good Enough Chats. My name's Dan Bauscher and I am the host and producer of the show. Before we jump into this episode, I just want to give you a quick overview about what this conversation is going to entail. So I'm going to be joined by Rob Dawson. He is somebody who is from the UK originally, grew up in the flatlands of Lincolnshire, but has been living in New Zealand, in the North Island of New Zealand, for some time now. And what he talks about today is kind of those feelings that a lot of young men have where they just kind of feel rudderless in their formative years and they don't really know where they want to go, and they have a kind of a sense of discontent. He talks about that feeling. He talks about how he has learned to reframe that, deal with it. But he also talks about the journey that he's been on, what's taken him to New Zealand, what he does in New Zealand now that is completely counter to the life that he was leading back home in the UK. And as he was talking to us for this episode, he was also going through the divorce with his wife. And he reflects on some of the things that he has learned that are helping him to manage that process and that experience as he goes through it in real time. It is a rewarding, gentle conversation, and I'm incredibly grateful that Rob has come forward to talk about this stuff. The kind of stuff that is not at the extremes of men's mental health, but is incredibly important to recognise and to deal with so that it doesn't become a much bigger problem down the line, which is what this show is all about. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hey Rob, how are you doing?
Pretty good in this moment. I've got a coffee, I've got a cat on my lap and a dog behind me. So
Can't
pretty
see
good.
the dog. Where's the dog?
She's under that green blanket.
Under the a blanket dog.
So
Sorry,
we're a very special dog with very
sorry,
special
listeners.
requirements.
You
So she
can't
gets
see it, but the YouTube people can see there is a small dark green mound on the bed behind Rob at the moment.
so
Um,
yeah, she's currently folded up like a little samosa.
oh, nice.
Yeah, just having a sleep.
Samosas. Mm, I'm hungry. Um,
I can't believe I got samosas in so early. That's kind of my like my go-to.
oh, nice. Okay. Well, Rob, before we go down any more culinary avenues, uh, please could you introduce yourself to our listeners, our viewers? Could you give me your name, where you would live, your age, what you do for a living, and because I already know where you live, I would like you to tell me the best local snack food that you can only
Ooh,
get there.
right. My name's Rob Dawson. I can't remember the order of everything, but I'm 44 years old. Uh, Originally from the UK, grew up in a little village outside Boston in Lincolnshire, in the fens and the flatlands. But now I live almost the furthest away that I could get in New Zealand, in the
Yes.
um, in the North Island, but quite far up the North Island. So a couple of hours north of Auckland. I live in a small coastal village, kind of. If you're going to describe it, it'd be this kind of similar to where I grew up in England, except this place has got nice beaches and sunshine and people that smile.
Lovely. And you are our first guest from New Zealand. Well, Australasia, full stop.
Oh wow,
This is the first time we've
representing
had a
me.
guest on that's over in that part of the world. So it's super excited. So for me, it's a
Yeah,
Friday night, but for you, it's already a Saturday morning and the sun is rising, right?
yeah, I'm from the future.
Yeah,
It's going to be a nice day.
that's what they call it. Rob from the future Dawson. Um,
Yeah,
the favourite local snack that you can only get in New Zealand?
God. Favorite local snack. I'm kind of partial to fish burgers at the moment,
Mhm.
but obviously it's like you can get fish burger anyway. But there's a place not too far away that they It's like a brioche bun with like deep fried fish and then a bit of like pickles, or is it like kimchi or something? Probably pickles, and there's a bit of cheese in there. There's some salad and some like tartar sauce. Quite partial to those at the moment.
That's amazing. I'm so pleased that I ate my dinner before we did this call because I know my stomach would just be rumbling incessantly now if I hadn't done that. Um, and actually, before we go into question number one, for
Mm.
disclosure, Rob and I uh, have known each other virtually probably for 12 months.
Yeah, around that. It would have been, yeah, maybe 10, between 10 and 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Rob, actually, the one thing you didn't do is what you do for a living, Rob, because that's
Oh, yeah.
how we met.
It is. But so for the past 23 years, I've been working as an arborist and a rope access technician. But then in the last 4 or so years, I've been coaching and mentoring, which is how we met. So mostly working with arborists. So I kind of developed a leadership mentoring program specifically for arborists. I've been mentoring them, but then I've broadened out and started coaching, people from all industries and all walks of life, and which is how you and I met. And so at the moment, I do a mixture of all of that, with the hope of kind of doing less of the arborist type stuff and more of the coaching and mentoring
Yeah,
over the next wee while.
awesome. Thank you very much.
Mm.
So let's jump into question number one proper,
Mm.
which is why is it that you're here today sharing your lived experience of mental health?
Um, yeah, I've been asking myself this. I think because I think it's important. I believe in your kind of mission or what you outline of destigmatizing men's mental health. Um, and the only way to do that is to talk about it. Like I like having deeper conversations. I kind of um, you know, get fed up or feel dissatisfaction with like some of the conversations, the day-to-day conversations we have, like, how are you? Oh, I'm good, and just brushing over stuff when we both know that's not the truth, when like life's happening and things are happening. Um, and so the only way we do that is by kind of addressing it head on, I guess, and talking about it. Um, also like I feel like mental health has all these different expressions or flavors. And, I've listened to this podcast and other ones, and, some of the stories that have been on here, it's the things people have been through and the depths and stuff. Whereas my experience, I've never really hit those places. It's not like I've hit these real specific lows. I guess it's more like what Netflix might call a slow burn.
Mm,
And I guess I'm here to represent that,
yeah,
that, it can, I guess to use an analogy, like if you're thinking of people going to the gym or fitness, the range of abilities and fitness level throughout the demographic is probably the same with mental health as well, or it feels the same with mental health. There's all these different ways it can express, and just because you haven't been prescribed anything or diagnosed with anything, it's still you're still affected by mental health, or you still have a mental health story.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I kind of wanted to talk to that a bit.
yeah. And I really appreciate that because it's you're right. Some of the stories that people have come forward to tell on this platform have been incredibly raw and they've been
Mm,
right to the edge uh,
mm,
in some instances. Um, but the reason that this platform exists, like the primary driver for me, is the normalization of these conversations so that men start to have them before
yeah.
it's to the point that it's really critical. But it's really important to talk about those critical extreme instances and stories and journeys that people have had. But it's even more important to talk about the stuff that happens before people get to that point. Because I believe that if more guys were openly talking about stuff that was sort of starting to grate a little bit, then they might not see that escalation, and they might
Mm.
not go so far down that route, and they might not end up in that position ultimately.
Yeah.
So it's a naive hope, but it's one that I believe in because I felt it myself when I was at my lowest ebb, suddenly
Mm.
realizing that other people had been through similar things and getting, and I've said this before on some of the episodes, I got really quite annoyed when I realized that other people had been through this stuff but no one had talked about it, because you suddenly
Yeah.
go from feeling like really isolated to realizing that it's actually a lot more normal than you thought it was. And who knows if I'd have gone down that path if I'd found out that it wasn't just me um,
Yeah.
earlier, right? So I applaud you for your honesty, and there is absolutely just as much value in what you have to say today as any of the other guests as well. So I'm
Mm.
really pleased that you're here and you're going to share this story with us, Rob. Um,
Yeah.
Before we jump into your, I guess the way in which your journey has evolved,
Mm.
how's the last week been for you?
Um, Ups and downs, like I'm going through a major life transition at the moment, which I'm sure we'll get into later. And so part of that is that I'm getting to experience the full range of the emotional palette at the moment.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I guess the general trajectory, God, I struggle with that word, is up and to the right, but it's definitely a zigzagged line. Um, and yeah, I guess part of my mental health journey is recognizing that that's part of life, that it doesn't always have to be linear and it doesn't always have to be upwards. And that it's okay to experience all these different flavors or colors of emotion rather than just trying to go for the ones that are in the good category that you kind of get conditioned are the only ones that you're meant to experience or allowed to experience or allowed to share even.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to spend time in the other ones as well when they're there. Yeah.
It's also, and it's really hard to say this when you're in the mire with it,
Mm.
but it's that's also where you learn the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
everything was just like plain sailing and fine, you wouldn't learn, you wouldn't grow. And
Mm.
whilst I don't wish the shitty way that people feel sometimes on anybody,
Mm.
my experience has taught me that I've grown as a result of having been through that afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely where the deepest learning happens. Um, what's that phrase? Like a boat that's not moving can't change directions or something. But yeah, it kind of feels like that you're given a little test and it's like, okay, how are you gonna deal with this one? And and it's almost like an opportunity to put into practice some of the things I picked up along the way, or yeah, certainly with what I'm going now, like almost my reaction to it surprised me in that the way I'm approaching this is different to how I've approached things in the past. And so it's almost a testimony or a testament to the work I have done
Mm.
and the things I have learned.
Well, let's start to explore that a bit, Rob.
Mm.
Um, how how has your relationship with your mental health evolved? And to qualify that question, I think it's important to say you start this wherever you want to start. If this is something
Hmm.
that relates to what's happened in the last few months, or if this is something that you can kind of see the roots of much earlier in your life, it's you tell us
Mm.
where you want it to start and as much detail as you want to disclose.
All right, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in terms of my mental health, there's probably several like overlapping stories that are maybe slightly different threads, but then all weave in together.
Mm.
Um, in terms of my childhood, like like, you know how some people can like really remember their childhood vividly. I can't remember mine too vividly, but I kind of remember like being pretty kind of happy and playful and joyous and content, all the things that children are up to a certain age. And then there was a point where something changed and like a kind of a slight darkness or negativity entered my thoughts in a way that never had before. And then that's just been in the background. It's probably like, I guess it'd be like mid-teens or early teens or something like that. And it's just I could never really pinpoint why. And I never spoke to anyone about this, never reached out, never like went to see a, mental health professional or anything like that. But it's just this slight kind of negativity.
Mm.
Um, not to say that I wasn't happy again after that, I totally was, but there'd always just be this thing in the background. And then, so there was that kind of thread. And then the other was that I just never knew what I wanted to do with my life. Like, the only thing I knew was that I didn't want to live where I lived.
Mm.
Like, you know, I grew up in this small little village on a small town, quite isolated, and it, I guess I found it very, very depressing and just a bit hopeless. And I just knew that I didn't want to stay there, but I didn't like. I remember like at school the careers book. Do you remember the careers book?
Oh
Did you
yeah,
have that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so your life, your future somewhere lies inside this book. And so I went to from A to Z, and I didn't find one fucking thing. It's just like I just remember sitting in the room, like just like going down the list. I was like, ah, shit. Like, surely there's got to be one in there somewhere. And just like, and there wasn't. I was like, holy crap, what am I gonna do? And like, just this lack of direction
Yeah.
of just like, what the fuck am I gonna do? And so like that definitely had an impact on me. And I always thought as well that like somehow life was going to happen like to me rather than me making it happen. That
I can relate. I can
yeah,
strongly relate to that. I don't think
I
I've
was
got
wait
over
like I was
age
like I know
40.
it's going to be good.
Yeah, age 46. I still don't think I've got over
Yeah,
that idea.
yeah, yeah. Like I remember like so I grew up in like one of the flattest parts of the world.
Yeah,
Like it's so flat because it was used to be the ocean floor or whatever. And like I was really into mountain biking, and these two things are like there's not a lot of mountains in Lincolnshire. And so I'd like buy these magazines and it'd be like, people on the front cover in the Rocky Mountains, like going down these steep rocky descents and stuff. And I was like, one day that's going to be me.
yeah.
And I've just got to sit here and wait until that happens.
Just got to
Like,
wait until the UK drift. This side of the UK
yeah,
drifts a bit closer to some hills.
yeah, that's it. I'm like, never really formed the link that like I've got to make that happen. And I guess that's similar with like the career thing and stuff like that. Um, Yeah, and then running in the background was that like the way you do life is you go to school and then from school you go to university and then you get a career and a job and you get a wife and then you buy a house and you get a car and happily ever after.
Yeah, yeah,
And like and then kind of went to school, didn't really know what the path was, drifted into uni. Like going to uni with no idea what you want to do is just a waste of fucking time. I've got staying power so I can push myself through stuff, but it was just like just so dissatisfied. And I guess that was a low point as well, because like yeah, like I wasn't fulfilled. I was just, I knew this wasn't right, but I didn't know anything else, know what I wanted to do. And so just kind of kept pushing through and um just just it took ages before I realized, oh, you've got to make it happen. And then I think at some point, like oh, that was it. Yeah. So I went to uni, like, I somehow ended up doing hotel and catering management. How the hell do you do that? Like, I'm trying to think of my logic. I think I had a mate who did it, and I think he did cooking classes, and that seemed cool as part of it. But it wasn't even like you're learning to be a chef, which I probably should have done, which would have been more exciting. Um,
Did it at
So I
least
did
get you
that.
out of Lincolnshire?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I ended up in Sheffield, which is cool. So I was in Sheffield and all of that. But yeah, then I had to do a placement year as part of that in a hotel. And then I was like, holy shit, I can't do this for the rest of my life.
Mm,
Like that, I think that maybe that was like a little kind of crisis moment of like, yeah, and no, yeah, not trying to talk bad about anybody who's in that industry, but it just wasn't for me. I've been inside, the stress, like you're just dealing with other people's problems all day, just people and for very little reward, shit kind of working hours as well, all the shift work and a lot of
mm,
demand. And that's when really started properly thinking about what it was I wanted to do with my life. And yeah, kind of went back to that mental careers, but I didn't have the actual book anymore. I just had what I could remember from the book and just going down the list and finding nothing. And then I remember I had some friends of friends who were arborists, and that just always sounded cool, like playing around with chainsaws and climbing trees and things like that. So I started like researching that a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to give this a whirl. And so I started getting a little bit direction there. And so I stuck out that year, went back to uni, finished that final year. And the day I finished, I went and worked with a local arborist, just dragging branches and just loved it. And like at that stage, like I was so into it, that I probably would have worked for free. And it was probably a good thing because I was pretty much working for free. I think I was getting like £3.50 an hour or something. But I just loved it, and loved the environment and started like I don't know. I've never really thought about it, but like maybe there's like some bond as well, just with the people I was working with, like just feeling part of something.
mm,
Working physically felt good. Like I'm quite an active person, a very active person, and so like I think that was important that I was outside as well and just working physically and that small team environment, um, and just learning about something I was really into was cool. Um, yeah, and I kind of got this sense of direction. And then one of the guys I worked with there had recently come back from New Zealand and was talking about that, and I was learning about the wider world, and like, I was like, this is kind of embarrassing, but I probably, other than like lamb, I didn't really, and the All Blacks, I didn't really know anything about New Zealand before.
yeah.
Oh, like there's two islands, okay, and all of this, and so just hearing stories, and yeah, that got me really kind of excited to explore places further afield, and um, since a young age, I always wanted to learn to skydive. Like that's
Mm,
always been in the back of my head. And I'd started saving up to learn to skydive. Um, I think I did a jump for my 16th birthday or something, like just a static line. But I've been saving up, and the pound was really strong at that point. It's like $3 to the pound or something.
wow.
And then I'd just broken up with my girlfriend at the time, and I realized that I could fly to New Zealand and learn to skydive there for the same cost as what it would cost in England. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I flew out to New Zealand and to a little town called Motueka in the top of the South Island where there's a good drop zone. And I did my accelerated free fall course, which is where you learn to free fall skydive like in a real short time duration and just like came alive, like I mean, I even remember like landing in New Zealand or very soon after, just like it felt like home in a way that
Mm,
my home had never felt like. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And just kind of really broadened my horizons. And then it was that process, and there's probably things building up to. I just realized, like I can make shit happen. And then from there, I haven't really stopped. You know what I
mm.
mean? Okay, like if I want good shit to happen, I just make it happen. That's like
Yeah, it lit your
uh,
fire.
yeah, 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 yeah. And so kind of yeah, went on from there. So I stuck around for like 9 months learning to skydive, picking apples to pay for it. Like that's a big industry in that area. And it's just piecework. So the harder you work, the more you earn. So I just went hard and did that and then traveled around and had a good time. Ended up coming back to England. So this was all like 2004. Um, Came back to England and I probably would have gone straight back to New Zealand again, but my mum got ill. Um, she was having these like weird kind of stomach pains and things like that. And Then she ended up getting diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
Um, and then a year later, she was dead. And so I ended up sticking around in England, yeah, for a few years after that, just while the dust settled. Um, and kind of, yeah, and then that dissatisfaction started creeping in again. I was like, lived in a few different areas, like I was in St Ives near Cambridge for a while, and then down in Brighton. Um, and there's definitely cool things about both of those places. But yeah, just felt this kind of, I don't know what it was, just like I wasn't being myself, I guess. Like, yeah, I guess this is going to come into it as well. Like coming from a small town, there's not a lot to do.
Mm.
And so you have to find things to do. And like one of the things that we found to do pretty early on was like taking drugs. And so from quite a young age, like smoking weed, and then later on, being a coming of age in the late 90s, early 2000s, like partying and ecstasy and things like that. Um, and obviously drinking. Like I was never a big drinker. Like drinking was more like a social peer pressure type thing for me. Like I never really enjoyed it. I just did it because everyone else did. And so I'd go in and out of phases of drinking, not drinking, but definitely like smoking weed every day and taking quite a bit of ecstasy early on. Um, and then like got out of that when, before I went to New Zealand and but then like coming back to England afterwards and that stuff started creeping in again. And then just having the realization this isn't me, this isn't what I want, you
Mm.
know, um, and knowing in the back of my mind there's another world out there. Like, and it's so funny, like I think of the things that I do over here for enjoyment and fun, and they're totally available in England as well. Like every time I go back to England now, I get amazed by how beautiful it is and the outdoors and stuff. But I never saw that side of it while I was there,
Yeah.
and I don't really know why. Like, and it's almost like I turn into a different person when I go back,
Mm.
or or when I was there. And so, yeah, I just got to a point kind of around yeah 2008, 2009, 2010. I was like, fuck this, like hitting another low point. Darker thoughts creeping in again, and just knowing that something had to change or you know and so yeah I ended up moving back to New Zealand in 2010 and for good this time. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
So then you moved back to New Zealand,
Mm.
and at that point, are you are you full on arborist at that point, or are you flitting around between other jobs to kind of make money?
No, so because of my visa condition at that time I went over for a specific job, so my visa was tied to a job, so I had to be an arborist working for a specific company. So I moved to Christchurch in 2010, started working for this company there, but I moved in the July, and then in the September, um, we had a major earthquake in Christchurch in September, September 22nd. Oh, it's the 27th today. So yeah, like 5 days ago, 15 years ago. Um, that one happened in the kind of early hours of the morning, like 4 in the morning, something like that. Went on for ages, caused a lot of damage to buildings, but no one really got hurt. And so it was a bit of a novelty. And then in the February of the following year, um, we had a major earthquake in the middle of the day that ended up killing 100 or so people and like heaps of damage to the CBD. Um, so kind of living through that, and then in amongst all that, you have like aftershocks and multiple aftershocks every day. Um, but an outcome of that was that there's a lot of hills that surround the city, and so I got into rope access stabilizing that rock.
Mm.
So I managed to kind of take a sidestep and get into rope access then. Um, Kind of abseiling down, like blasting the rock or pinning it or putting in protection netting. So I kind of did that alongside as well. And then since then, I've kind of done a mixture of the two, of mostly tree work, but also yeah, rope access stuff. So the geo stuff or geological stuff, and then ecological stuff to do with pest plants and things like that, and then also structures like buildings, bridges, things like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Like all super active though, all like completely flying in the face of the Lincolnshire experience, smoking weeds, etc.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
seems like that was a very sort of what's the right word, static sort of experience in Lincolnshire, and come to
yeah,
New Zealand and everything just goes, we are.
yeah, just expansive. And just the mountains, like mountains always have like a spiritual significance to me in some way. It's so bizarre because I'm from like the flatlands, I'm a bog
Yeah, yeah.
trotter, and like I'm just drawn to mountains and like um yeah, there's something very special to me about being in the hills. And funnily enough, I'm good at hiking it. Like I run long distance and stuff, and like I've got mountain legs for some reason, and I think it comes from tree climbing
I
because
reckon.
like I've never really like equated the two, but like because it isn't I didn't grow up running in hills or mountains or anything. But then when I started running in hills or mountains, I was better at climbing than I was on the flat or down. And I
Yeah.
think it's just because I've like been climbing trees
Yeah, you
like
spend
for
all
a
day,
while.
every day climbing up trees and absoling down rock faces. I reckon that'll do it.
Yeah, but like my like dumb little mind didn't really equate the two things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, sometimes you just don't see what's obvious, do you, until you kind of
No,
get it reframed. But yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so you've got this incredible sort of outdoor experience, and
Mm,
you mentioned um, early on in the chat that you're going through a bit of a life transition at the moment.
mm,
How does that kind of outdoorsy world, new role, new jobs in New Zealand kind of play
mm.
into, I guess, non-work life in New Zealand?
Yeah. How does that play into non-work life? Yeah, I guess like the thing that's coming to mind is like a realization I had during the lockdowns of, and maybe actually a bit earlier on than that. Like I'd always told myself a story as well that because my work life was so active that I couldn't do stuff outside of work,
Mm,
or that I'd be too tired for it. Or actually, I think that's stuff I got told at the beginning. Like I got told several things about being an arborist. It was like you're not going to have time or energy for anything else because it's so active,
mm,
and that you're going to be broken by the time you're like 30. And so think about what you want to do afterwards. And like none of those things have been true, but they kind of were true for a while. Like I was on this trajectory towards like both of those being true of like being burnt out and then just not living the life I wanted to live outside of it. And then I just started to challenge it and realized it didn't hold up.
mm,
So yeah, like being an arborist is very physical and there's a lot of kind of repetitive stuff in there. And so you can like, and I had no idea about how to move my body and things like that. And so I was getting pain in my shoulders and my hips and lower back and stuff. And then an ex-partner was a Pilates instructor and introduced me to Pilates. And then I started doing that. And through that, I learned how to move in a more integrated way. And all these things started clearing up. Um, and then also like got into CrossFit around that time as well and started doing that outside of work. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, no, you can just keep going. And like, and so
bloody
I'd like
hell. I'm
go.
fucking tired just hearing you talk about this.
And so I'd like, so I'd do that outside of work as well. But then like, there's a lot of repetitive stuff in there as well. So I started getting injuries from that. I think anybody who's done CrossFit has kind of got injuries from that. But then I started combining CrossFit and Pilates together and kind of learned how to move a bit better. And that's worked out pretty well. But then alongside of this, like those dreams of riding downhill in the Rocky Mountains, like I started getting into downhill mountain biking as well, especially around Christchurch. That was really cool. Um, and yeah, until in 2014, into 2014, I came off my bike and smashed my shoulder to pieces, which is another common mountain bike story, I think.
Mm,
And so since then, gone into trail riding, so mellowed down, but I just lost my confidence with it, and then kind of got into running during the lockdowns. So the lockdowns were interesting for me. I know for a lot of people the lockdowns were like quite hard, but for me it was like one of the best moments of my, but one of the most pivotal moments in my life. So in the build up to that, um, I had moved to where I live now, this kind of small village in the north. And prior to that, I'd been subcontracting. So I work as an arborist, but I just subcontract to other companies. So I work for a bunch of different companies as an independent contractor, but I didn't have any contacts up here. So I set up a company, my own company,
Mhm.
and found my own work, um, more out of necessity rather than desire. And so it wasn't something I was really passionate about doing, but it's something I felt like I needed to do just to make it work. So I did that and was putting a lot of effort into the business, and it was being successful. I kept it quite small. I just used other subcontractors as well because I didn't want to employ anyone. And so it required a lot of extra hours. So I would be quoting all the work, organizing all the jobs and invoicing and stuff, but also doing all the work
Mm.
with subbies. And so I was probably doing like nearly the same amount of hours off the tools as I was on the tools in my typical Rob fashion. Um, Plus trying to go to the gym and things and do other enjoyment and be married and stuff in between. And just nose to the grindstone going at it. And then the lockdowns hit, and it was just this massive time of reflection for me of like, I can't keep doing this. Like I got to experience what life was like without any of those things.
Mm.
Like I'd become quite resentful of where I'd lived because I just associated with work. And then the lockdowns happened, everything shut down. We got given some government money, so like money was taken care of for a little while. I was like, oh wow, this is what life is like when you're not working so much as like, like just get up with the sun, spend time with like my wife and the animals and like cook nice food and well, cook healthy food rather than buying it and have this time and space. Um, and then yeah, just started running. Like I'd always hated running throughout my whole life. I've got these like bad memories of like the cross country at school and being this like small little asthmatic kid getting whipped along or threat like this is what it's like growing up in the 80s. Like we our gym teacher, if you're at the back, I won't mention any names, but he would run along next to you with his hand on your behind until you ran off it.
Okay.
His surname was Savile. I can't remember his first name.
That's a
But
joke. That's a joke. Um, yeah, that's not what you'd ever want to hear for your kids in school today.
no, so that was my memory of running. So yeah, I purposely picked something I didn't like to see if I could do it till I liked it, and did and started running.
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, and also like decided right, I've got to change up my work life. So I decided I'm going to quit my company, go back to subcontracting, free up all this time, and then focus on what this new thing was. And it's that kind of lack of direction thing coming in again. So like at school, yeah, I promise there's a point to this story. Um, so at school, I had that lack of direction of like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Found being an arborist and stuff, and that took me down this path that brought a lot of meaning to me. But then I'm facing it again as I'm getting towards the end of my arborist career. Like my body's still holding up, but it's more that I'm bored. Like I'm bored of it's not challenging me in the same way. And I know that I can't do it forever or don't really want to do it forever. So I'm kind of facing that same thing again of like, oh, what do I do now? Um, and so that's a transition I've been through the last few years, and that's how I've got into this coaching and mentor and just realizing that I love talking to people basically and like trying to help them figure out their lives. Like, because that's what's brought a lot of meaning to me is figuring my life out
Hmm.
or trying to. Um, but yeah, and then I'm trying to remember what your original question was. I've gone off on such a
It
riff.
was I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was about the sort of you'd alluded to at the start of the conversation about going through a life transition, and
Yeah, yeah,
I was asking about how like being so sort of active, physical in your work, and knowing that you do
yeah.
like ridiculous levels of activity outside of your work as well. I was asking you how that kind of how that played into where you find yourself now. Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, so since the COVID I've been like yeah, subcontracting, building up this coaching and mentoring business. And then also that running has like kind of increased. I started off with like small distance, like 5K was far, 10K was far, and it's kind of stepped up and up and up, and then ended up getting into ultra marathons and doing that alongside. Um, but a lot of kind of growth comes through that, like the kind of like you can you grit your way through a smaller distance, I find.
mm,
Um, you can kind of be the stick and push yourself along, but then when it gets into the real long stuff, I feel like it has to be more of the carrot. And that was a journey, like tried to beat myself through races and realizing that gets you a certain distance, but then realizing actually no, what you really need is a coach and a mentor. And so it kind of loops back into the work I'm doing of like being the coach and the mentor
yeah,
for myself during that. Like when you like hours deep into races and heaps of miles on the legs, you don't need a drill sergeant.
no,
You need, you need someone to like encourage you and to be that kind of support. And then that's kind of looping back into the transition I'm going through now. So a couple of months ago, my wife and I decided to separate, and we'd been together for 9 years, married for 8 years. And so that in itself is a big transition. But it also means that we're going to be selling this property as well as part of it,
mm,
um, which is a dream I've had forever. Like, a shared dream. Like, so we live rurally. We've got a couple of acres, just a small house on a couple of acres, and we have animals and things. And I think I was trying to think where the dream came from. I think it's from reading of Mice and Men, like living off the fat of the land,
yeah, yeah,
like that kind of thing. And just like when they always have that dream of having that little place and they have the chickens and they raise the alfalfa and all of that.
yeah.
Like I think I don't know. I don't know if I'm raising alfalfa. I'm raising like many weeds and not ones we can smoke.
Hey,
But
they're green. It's fine. It's green.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, we have like a subtropical climate here. We've got grass that climbs trees. I wish someone had told me that. Like,
Mm,
like it's so much work. Um,
it's a
so
trip.
yeah, 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 Day the Triffid. Yeah, yeah, creeps through. Um, yeah, and so it's letting go of all of these dreams, and I think that's yeah some of the hardest. It's like all of these things overlapping of like this this vision you thought or this path you thought your life was taking, and then just letting go of that, and it's like a grieving process almost of like all these little things.
I I get that because what you've just described sounds like idyllic in terms of the life
Yeah.
that you have for yourself, and in to I'm paraphrasing massively the life that you've just described up until this point in the conversation, but you had the sort of the rudderless starts,
Mm.
then you managed to get some sort of direction and some vitality from
Mm.
travels, and then you went back to England for obvious reasons, but then that started to sort of drift in again, and then you've come
Mm.
to New Zealand and you've kind of embraced this outdoor lifestyle and sort of really kind of living rurally, doing the ultra marathons, biking, everything, as well as having the, I guess, the nourishment of that sort of change to coaching and mentoring
Mm.
alongside that. And now you're kind of there. I guess there is a risk that you go into another round of sort of potentially rudderlessness. If,
Yeah.
but I get
Yeah.
that's kind of. you've said to me offline that you've been surprised by how you've reacted to this. And is it
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're going into that rudderlessness? Is that the surprise?
Yeah, like it is that it's like in the past in these major transitions it has like kind of floored me more or stopped me in my tracks and like focusing too much on everything I'm losing
Hmm.
and then not being able to kind of handle the emotions or the feelings around that and either like trying to race through them by distraction with something else or someone else or whatever, or trying to suppress or control those feelings. And what's interesting about this one is like I'm just seeing it as an opportunity. Like I'm feeling the sadness, like it hurts like hell, like it's the end of my marriage, the end of this dream. Like we had dreams for this property, dreams for the rest of our life, all of that. And so on the one hand, there's the kind of the sadness and the grief around that. But then I'm also seeing this huge opportunity in that as much as I love this place, it's also, I don't want to call it a financial burden, but it's like there's a pressure to like kind of to have to earn money through work to pay for the mortgage and things like that.
Hmm.
And all of that's going to go. And, we're going to sell the house and then the rest of my life could be whatever. And it doesn't seem scary. Like in the past, that would have seemed really scary and confronting, and now it just seems like it seems almost like a challenge. It's
Hmm.
like what do you want it to be? Like because it could be anything, and it's like I think I mentioned before of like when I smashed my shoulder downhill mountain biking, that kind of also coincided with me moving area and things like this. So and but that time I just thought like, oh shit, my body's broken. I can't work. I literally couldn't work. Um, felt very constrained in my options and stuff. But really, it was a huge opportunity because I had time and space. I'd let go of one rental thing. I was living at a friend's place. I could have gone in many different directions, but I was too narrowly focused on what I thought the problem was, or rather than seeing this wide open opportunity. And I feel like in this one, I'm seeing that opportunity more
Hmm.
of like for a long time, I'm like, okay, what do I do after being an arborist? But I've still got to keep being an arborist because that's how I earn my money to pay the mortgage. It's like, well, okay, if the mortgage is taken away, now what do you want to do? Like,
Hmm.
because all of a sudden I don't have to earn to that same amount. And so that surprised me. And then also the degree to which I'm able to lean into sitting with, well, someone's waking up, lean into sitting with my feelings around it. Like in the past, I've been too scared to like spend any time in the sadness or the loneliness or the grief or the loss because I thought I'd be crippled by it or I'd go down into the spiral that I'd never get out of.
Hmm.
And now I'm able to just sit with it and experience it and know that it'll it'll drift in and out. You know
Hmm.
that like I got conditioned from a young age, as many people do, that the only emotion that you're allowed to spend any time with is good or happy. Yeah, but things like sadness and stuff like that are to be avoided or suppressed or changed. And that no, they're just to be experienced. They're just we label all these things, but that's just a human invention. It's they're just an experience. They're just a different experience than the other one. And
Hmm.
so like all of this stuff has been coming to me more naturally without me thinking about it. I've done a lot of reading and it hasn't come from nowhere. Like there's reasons why this is in my mind, but it's amazing to see that come in right to the forefront straight away rather than me having to like consciously make that happen. And
Hmm.
and that's what I find surprising.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. That's a it's a massive kind of benefit, I guess, of the sort of the self-reflection that you've
Mm,
been able to undertake. Um, that I mean that does lead very nicely into the fourth question, which is the kind of the light bulb moment. You've just described a really clear sort of light bulb moment for you, where in the present moment you are able to deal with things differently to how you might have dealt with them in the past, and you're kind of reaping
Mm,
the benefits of it. But have there been other kind of points along the way? I mean, I don't want to take it necessarily all the way back to when you first started talking about those kind of dark moments when you were
mm,
in your mid-teens, but
mm,
have there been other instances where you've learned, you've realized either I need to start doing more of this or I need to stop
mm,
doing that, that have helped you?
mm. Yeah, I mean, I remember when first moved back to New Zealand the second time, so in 2010, just before those earthquakes, the girlfriend I had at the time was into Buddhism, and I started reading some Buddhism books. And I was reading about things like non-attachment um, and grasping and things like that of in different emotional states or like, and so like the seeds were getting sown then, and I was kind of in denial about it. I was like, oh no, I'm pretty sweet. And then like when um when that like relationship ended several years ago, like I kind of several years later, like I hadn't really learned anything because I went into these holes and kind of went into these places of despair and stuff and just realized I needed to change or like, and so I spent some time on my own doing self-reflection and things like that and thought that I'd come to a place before I ended up, I thought I was kind of in a more self-aware place or learned some skills before I got into my marriage.
Hmm.
And then I guess throughout my marriage, like I'd never really like the world had never really wanted me to show up in an emotional way until I met my wife. Like nothing in my childhood or where I grew up or my parenting or society had wanted me to be an emotional being. They'd never been rewarded, never really been accepted in that way. And
Hmm.
so I'd learned to close them off and shut them down. And, certainly through my mum's death and things like that, I did that then. And then, yeah, my wife had been through her own journey with this and like was in a place where she was kind of wanting to kind of express emotion and feel emotion more and kind of challenge me to be that. And I just didn't know how to be with that. Like I guess I always sought out like kind of love that I had to work for. That was my comfort place was feeling like I had to like work hard for love and acceptance and things like that. And then to have it to be in a relationship where no, they were just happy for me to be who I was without any of that. I didn't know how to be in that situation. I didn't, and so like I guess I made up false stories or narratives that I still needed to work. So like I put all my effort into doing things to try and prove my worth or prove and which ultimately like kind of was a big part in the marriage failing, I think, in that all she really wanted me to be was to show up as myself and with all my flaws and accept and show love in that way. And instead I like tried to show love in the only way I knew how, which was to do shit and do things. And so those seeds that had been sown earlier on with the Buddhism books and things like that, like I hadn't got at all, and but then along the way, like I've had, I've always been interested in psychology and self-improvement. So I've been reading stuff and listening to stuff. And then like you said at the beginning, like it's not until we're in these moments where we get tested that we find out what we really know, or where we get to learn. And so it's like almost through the breakdown of this relationship that all of this come all this stuff's come flood into the forefront, and I can see, like I'm seeing it in so much more clarity. And like, so I feel like now is like one of those pivotal moments, or certainly like, the last 2 months has been definitely a light bulb moment of like I'm in this state of massive transition and a massive self-awareness, and it's going to continue. And like, I've got no desire to involve anybody else in this at the moment. Like in the past, that when a relationship breaks down, like because I've kind of, in essence, I've been using the other person to fill this hole inside myself that I haven't been able to fill myself. I've been looking for someone to replace that because I'm like, oh shit, the cork's removed. I need something else. But I've got no desire of that at the moment. I just want to sit in this and be in this on my own, and kind of go through this process of kind of integrating the stuff that I know on an intellectual level, but feel it more viscerally and
Mm.
more deeply. Um, so I'd say like that now is kind of one of those, yeah, pivotal moments or light bulb moments in terms of, yeah, I guess the biggest thing, it'd probably come into like the relationship with myself and this kind of accepting myself for who I am rather than having to feel like I have to change anything about myself or work or provide or do anything to be loved. That as I am right now, I'm worthy of love and worthy of being here and have value. Like
Mm.
so much of my life, I've been rewarded for what I can do, like in a physical way. And then that's going to go one day. And so who am I then if I place all my worth in what I can do physically? Who am I when that's taken away? And that could be taken away anytime. Yeah, I could have an accident, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's one of the big things I'm going through at the moment is just, intellectually, like you heal that and I know that, but to actually feel it, to actually feel it, like, hey, I have value just as I am right now without having to do shit, to do stuff.
I mean, what you've just described is um, a sense. Sounds to me like a sense of relative inner calm because you talked about, you can feel the pain of it, but also you can appreciate how far you've come in the
Mm.
moment. But what you've also just described, I think, is that you can see a future as well. You don't know what the
Yeah.
future is, but
Mm.
when you talk about transitioning from a very physical, demanding job to knowing that you can't do that forever because you're not going to be at those
Mm.
trees when you're 85, right?
Mm.
But you're already putting the groundwork in for what's next anyway. You've already been doing that through the sort of the coaching and the mentoring
Mm.
work. And what I think that what I think, and by all means feel free to contradict me or wholeheartedly agree with what I'm
Mm.
going to say. What I think
Mm.
from the listener's perspective, the viewer's perspective, is it that really illustrates why it's so important to take stock and start thinking about this stuff before you need it.
Mm.
Because I don't know about you, but when I'm experiencing difficulties with my mental health, the last thing I need to do is read this great book on how to get out of your difficulties when you're having troubles with your mental health because I can't absorb it
Mm.
because it's the difficulties are the thing that's all encompassing. Whereas
Mm.
if I'm taking stock and I'm reading stuff like that while I'm in a good place, it's when I go to a bad place that I get the benefit of having read it. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think on a sort of a more of a macro level, from what you've described, it's because you've been doing the work on yourself for all these years that now you're put to the test, but you've got that in the locker because you've done the work already. That doesn't mean it's going to
Totally.
be like seamless and painless, but it does mean that you are better equipped to respond to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like working out or running or whatever. The time you don't want to try and train for the race on race day. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the real benefit is the training. It's like the consistency of the training as well, of like showing up every day or regularly doing those little bits, accumulating over time, building up your strength or your endurance or your fitness, and then the race day, it's just, a demonstration of all of that, of the accumulated work that you've done. And similar to this, just like little and often, like I guess I'm lucky in that I find this stuff interesting. So the books I read and the podcasts I listen to, it's just kind of drip feeding this stuff in my back in the background there. Like it's interesting the podcast thing because they haven't been how long I don't know how long they've been popular for, like 10 or 15 years. But it's almost like they've become a substitute or a surrogate for like deeper conversation for me. Like I find in day-to-day life it's harder to have deeper conversations. And so that's why podcasts have been so appealing in that you can, I guess, voyeuristically be part of these deeper conversations.
Mm.
And I never realized the effect that that has of like just, what they say, like something like you're an accumulation of your five closest relationships. Well, like some of the podcasts would be my closest relationships in a way because it's not a two-way interaction, but like I'm being influenced by them more than people in my daily lives,
And you're spending a
because
long time with them.
yeah, 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 yeah. You feel like you almost know them in a way or whatever. And just those, um, the themes that come through and the messages that come through that get reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. And that's, I guess, what surprised me in this transition, that all of this stuff has just come straight to the forefront of like in how I act and react.
Mm.
Yeah. But definitely like, yeah, doing it ahead of time. I mean, in the moment, like you're not in a learning mindset anyway. If you're in that kind of fight, flight, freeze mode, you're not receptive, you're not learning, you're not able to. It's yeah, you're not gonna sit there with the manual of how to sort my life out when your life's falling apart. So yeah, definitely having this drip feed has been helpful.
Mm. Can I
Mm.
ask you a question, but it's very related to what you just said about the podcast piece? The
Yeah, yeah.
of sort of deeper conversations on
Mm.
a regular basis.
Mm.
What would you rather experience over the next, say, 6 to 12 months? Would you rather experience kind of finding more of those podcasts and widening your learning, or building a relationship with a couple of other blokes, for example, with whom you could have those deeper conversations? What would be the more valuable to you?
Oh, the second one, definitely. And I mean, that's another thing that has been different about this transition. In the past, I've tried to deal with everything on my own, and
Mm.
I've just kind of, you know, felt like I've got to, the only way I'm useful for society is if I show up as this calm level person. Even like after my mum died, like I wouldn't allow myself to cry in public or in front of anyone. And, and that, I think in the whole time that me and my wife have been together, like she's seen me cry once because I've like just suppressed it so much. But then going through this, I've reached out to people. So I've got two sisters that I'm really close with, so I've been speaking to them quite regularly, which has been really useful. But then also I've got friends around here, just like guys, and just being more open with them and trying to be more honest about what it is I'm feeling. So like when people are asking me how I'm doing, just giving an accurate representation of that or of what it is that I'm actually going through. That it's not all good. Like there's ups and downs in there, but and and also trying to cultivate relationships where I can say that to them and they don't feel a need to kind of fix me or change me in any way.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the aversion to it is like sometimes you just want to be heard, or a lot of the time you just want to be heard and you want to be able to say how you're feeling, but not feel like that's a problem that someone else needs to solve. And I think as men, it's like we are people, that's kind of our job role. We solve problems. And, one of the biggest learnings for me is that no, you can just sit there with someone while they're feeling something. And, because there's a lot in that, if, it's not comforting to feel like you're a problem to someone else, but it also is disempowering to when someone tries to fix you. But
Yeah.
like I guess the other thing, like, I've experienced as I've got older in life and also as you become more kind of introspective and stuff, or that, oh, no one understands me and that, I can't have these deep conversations. It's like, well, have you tried? Have you tried to have these deep conversations? And so now I'm trying to I experiment doing it, like with the people I feel safe with, and they respond really well. And it's like, okay, it's not them, it's me. Like, I feel like there's a book I need to write, which is a list of all the things Rob's learned way too late in his life that are really useful. And one of them is like if you want to have deep conversations, have deep conversations.
Yeah. And
You
notes of
know?
younger self.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like if someone tries to fix you, just call them out on it. Say like, hey, like I'm not feeling great, but you don't need to do anything about it. I just want to talk to you about it. And they're like, sweet, okay. Because like men are pretty good with instruction, like yeah. And so like if I want to have a conversation a certain way, like I can make that happen, similar with like my life, don't sit and wait for my life to happen and wait for everything to line up. Like coach people. I want to have a conversation like this and you don't need to do anything. You just need to sit there and nod and be with me.
It's true. It's the and I'm very sort of aware that a lot of the time the message that comes through from these conversations is if you're feeling like stuff's getting on top of you, talk about it. But the flip side of that
Mm.
is that you, as men, we need to get better at listening the right
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
so that they aren't trying to fix it, so that they are showing that they're paying attention, they're sort of present, actively listening, not trying to
Yeah.
fix it, but they just recognize that this is somebody. It just needs to say some stuff out loud that they will work it out themselves a lot of the time. They'll work out
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they want to do about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is so hard to.
Mm.
You're right. You've got to do that with people you trust. But
Mm.
wouldn't it be
Mm.
amazing to live in a world where more and more often than not, you start a conversation with a bloke and
Mm.
they are able to read the signals and have
Mm.
and play the role that you need them to play in that discussion. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's things like this that does it, podcasts like this and like I said, just making that, like setting the parameters, like even if you have to be really obvious and like kind of clunky about it at the beginning, like, okay, we're gonna have a conversation in this way, but these are the parameters of it, but then it kind of sets the tone and then you can just have it from there.
100%.
Mm.
Rob, this has been a lovely conversation. I'm really grateful for the kind of experiences that you shared on this. Final
Hmm.
question is, if somebody listens to this and they feel like they've traveled a similar path or they're traveling a similar path,
Mm.
based on your experience, what is or are the most important things that they can do to take positive steps?
Mm. Good question because I think of the things I do now to like aid my mental health or my experience of life, but they're very different to the things that would have made sense to me, or I wouldn't have been receptive to them when I was younger.
Well, let's answer this then from the perspective of younger Rob.
Mm.
What current Rob knows.
Yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
would you change what you would have said to younger Rob that would have had
Mm.
made a difference?
I think the main thing is to know that like you're not the only one. You're not the only one that feels like this. Um, and just, I guess these things tie together, but just talking, sharing it with people, talking about it. Like I felt like I had to, this wasn't normal, like that I should be happy, and there was a mismatch between what I thought reality should be and what reality actually was. Like, everybody has different things going in their childhood, but my childhood was, pretty good. And I was taken care of and provided for, and so I was like, you've got everything, you should be happy, but I wasn't. And so I think just normalizing or like having conversations or knowledge around that it's okay to not feel great, and it doesn't it there's nothing wrong with not feeling great, like it's just reality. And then reaching out and speaking to other people about it, like um yeah, my sisters have always been there throughout my life as people that I can share things with, and so that's been really valuable. um and then in time, in I guess like that kind of direction or purpose is was a big thing for me. And I think the best thing I could have done when I was young was to just take some time to explore. And so rather than trying to go down this track that didn't fit, like I knew, like I was ignoring my instincts, like I knew that that wasn't right, like going to uni and going down that path didn't feel right. But I was just forcing myself into this box that I thought I should fit into. And
Hmm.
instead, I think what would have been better is to just take some time to explore, like having free time and openness, open space, sorry, to like, so whether that's like going off traveling or um, just getting some kind of job that gives you space to, that satisfies your financial needs, but then gives you space to kind of to think rather than trying to pressure yourself into a direction. So yeah, I definitely think those two things or those few things of realizing that there's no one certain way that this should happen, that you don't have to feel a certain way, that what you feel is what you feel, and that's fine. Speaking to other people, and then if needed, allowing yourself time and space to find out what it is you really want and what brings meaning to your life.
Yeah. Each of which requires that person to give themselves permission to reflect, to
Yeah.
think about it, and not necessarily to not to point the finger of blame at somebody else because of how you feel, but actually to kind of go,
Mm.
hang on a minute, what's my role in this? What's the stuff that I can control,
Mm.
manage?
Yeah. And just accepting what is, I guess, rather than that you got to change it right now, just allowing it to evolve.
Hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
All
Now I
good.
know historically you've been quite an elusive person to contact on social media, but I was going to ask you if somebody's heard this and they wanted to get in touch with you, is that okay? And if so, we'll talk afterwards about what I can put in the description for them to be able to reach you.
I mean, they can try and reach me on social media, but I don't have any social media. So it can be
Invisible
difficult.
Rob.
I do have a website,
Okay,
so they can go on my
we
website.
can put that in the
Yeah,
description.
yeah, and they can contact me via that way. I'm a bit old school. They can come and knock on my door if they want and say hello, and I'll give them a cup of tea.
Just got to get over to New Zealand first. You know,
Yeah, yeah. You pay for the flight, I'll pay for the tea.
I'm assuming that most people that hear this are not going to be in New Zealand, but you never know. This may start a
Yeah,
whole good enough chats following in the North Island, at least. Who knows?
yeah. Australasian
Yeah, I
uh,
take it. I
numbers are
take it.
going to
You,
go
well,
high
you
up.
know it's worked when you see the next Australasian guests on the podcast in the future. You'll know that's the reach
There
and
we
the
go.
impact that it's had. Um, but no, Rob, seriously, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It's been a great conversation to have. And I know there's going to be stuff in here that is going to land with people. It's going to resonate and it's going to help them. And that is obviously the purpose of every single one of these chats. I just want it to help one person, and I want it to hopefully help me get a future guest as well. So that's my two KPIs that I'm holding myself accountable for this. And I feel like this is going to do it. Absolutely. To our listeners, our viewers, thanks for joining us for this conversation. I hope you found it useful. If you have, please feel free to share this, put this out in the world a little bit further, share it across your social media channels. If you're listening to this on the podcasting platforms, reviews are amazing in helping to surface this in more people's feeds. By all accounts, it doesn't matter what you say, but if you still bang 5 stars on that review, it will help us exponentially. And we've only got a few reviews so far, so any more reviews we can get would be hugely appreciated. And most importantly of all, if some aspect of this conversation has resonated with you because you think that you know somebody else who needs to hear it, send this episode to them, because that is the point of doing this. And if this can help one person to realize that there are positive steps that they can take to improve their own situation, then that's it, job done. That's it for now for this episode. We will be back again very shortly with another episode of Good Enough Chats. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.